What's up, everybody? My name's Mike Sjogren, here with my co-host,
Emmanuel Pani.
We're part of a group of specialized real estate investors you've probably never heard of.
We didn't start with deep pockets or wealthy families, and we don't rely on 401ks, mutual funds, or traditional real estate investing.
In fact, many of us don't even own the properties that fund our freedom. If you ask the money experts out there, they'd say what we do is impossible, yet it's happening every single day.
It's happening through a new niche called short-term rentals.
We are Short-Term Rental Nation, and these are our secrets. What's going on, STR Nation? Welcome back to another episode of the Short-Term Rental Secrets podcast. I'm your host, Mike Sjogren, here with my main man and brother from another mother, Mr. Emmanuel Pani. What's up, E?
My brother, so good to see you. We just got off of our boardroom call, and I'm honestly like so impressed. Like, you know, and like it's funny because like I remember us in like M1 back in the day, right? And it still has that like iron sharpens iron kind of vibe to it. And it just like I saw a video of Cody Sanchez was talking about something that day about like how the people that you have next to you at work, if they're top performers, how much more your production goes up by virtue of nothing else, right? So close up top performer, your performance goes up like 15%, I thought she said. And then around non-top performers or like the bottom of the pack, it goes down 30%. And it's just like, it's such a thing that like you don't think about, but it makes such a difference when you're like in the right rooms with the right friends and the right people. Because again, like you don't think about it, but the people that you have around you, even if it's not in a work environment, they may be like taking away that 30% from you without you doing anything else different. It's just by virtue of like who you have around you. And the boardroom for me is such a huge example of that, kind of similar to the rest of the stuff that you and I have done together, but like it's just such a good reminder of like
100%
around you.
And it's we've talked a little bit about culture here and there, like on your team, like having A players with good attitude, good energy on your team. It's the same thing with people you spend time with, right? Like I'm a pretty introverted guy. Like I don't go out a lot and do different things. I've got a pretty small circle, but the people that I surround myself with, like you and, you know, our boardroom and a lot of those folks that like, that's my circle, man. And like, it keeps me focused on it. It's not even about like the money. It's just how close can I get to my potential, you know, and not settling and letting myself off the hook for certain things or whatever. It's just like when you get around the right people, it just constantly pushes you to level up and just hold yourself to a higher standard. The money comes, it's a byproduct of it, but it's more than that, you know?
Yeah. 100%. And it's just like, you know, like I think as like we're like halfway through the year, right? Like this is June 1st. I think it's always the best time to kind of like audit how the year is going to like where you thought you were going to go. And also being very mindful of like the people around you. Are they playing an effect to where you're going? Because the other thing is like, as we grow our team and our businesses, finding that one hire, like we hired a couple people this year, and every single one of them, I can put my finger on where they have added in the business and how the business runs and how they have like really augmented who I am as a leader, who Tasha is as a leader too. Because then when you have the right support around you, also us as leaders, right? We have the opportunity to grow and level up because we finally feel supported and we finally see somebody that like understands our vision, helps us with the work. So yeah, it's super important. So like maybe like if you're feeling that you've been in a certain corner, little bit of a bottleneck, just kind of look up and see like maybe it's what you're doing, and maybe it's one hire away or one little switch away in the sense of the people you hang out with and who you have around you and so on and so forth, you know?
100%, man. And that it's funny. It's a good transition for our guest today because I had been seeing his stuff on social media and I just resonated with him. He had really good energy. And then we got to meet at STR WealthCon, and he's just a really good dude, you know, good energy, humble, like getting after it, just pushing himself. And yeah, I'll go through his bio in a second, then we'll bring him up. But we've got Blake Daly on the show today, and he began his real estate investing career buying and renovating hurricane damaged homes in Panama City, Florida. and he stumbled upon a high cash flowing short-term rental strategy, acquiring houses with ADUs. And after surpassing his W-2 income with his cash flow, Blake pivoted to commercial multifamily and syndicated his first large apartment deal, 66 unit in North Carolina. That is no small feat for your first commercial deal. Combining his experience with raising money and doing commercial deals in burring STR properties, Blake jumped into commercial short-term rentals with converting rundown hotels and motels into renovated boutique hotels. He has owned 5 boutique hotels and a handful of short-term rental homes across California, Florida, and Utah, along with a 66-unit apartment complex. He buys, renovates, and operates boutique short-term rentals. So without further ado, Blake, welcome to the show, brother.
Guys, what's up? It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. I've been looking forward to this one for a while. I know I had to reschedule a couple times and whatever, but I've been looking forward to this one. So
That's all right. When the kids need you, that's more important than us talking hotels and short-term rentals for a little bit. So no worries, man. Just glad we could fit it in the schedule. And right now, like, I'm currently sitting my top half with a regular T-shirt and bottom half in my Air Force uniform. So yeah, fit it in when we can.
I love it.
Oh
Man.
yeah,
I love it.
awesome.
So I always love to go back to like the beginning, and what was your aha moment to get in the real estate investing game?
Yeah, I think mine, if I could trace it back to like an idea, I was walking through Barnes and Noble, like while I was in college, and that little purple Bible, Rich Dad Poor Dad, stuck out to me. And I always wanted to, get into business, start my own business, be an entrepreneur. And I didn't, at that time, didn't know what that was going to be. And then I read the book about real estate, and building cash flow and, the cash flow quadrant, all that, like the mindset behind investing in real estate. I was like, you know what? I could do that. It seems easy enough. And jumped in, found Bigger Pockets, read books. And by the time I was ready to commission and, get stationed at my first duty location, I had my VA loan. So like I get in for $0 down and could get a multi-unit property and live for free and have tenants pay the rent and maybe make some cash flows. Like, what a better start. And jumped in and, found the house with a little guest house. We rented on Airbnb and rolled from there.
Dude, I love that. So was your first rental, did you short-term rent that? Like you're out the gate, that was your first one?
Yeah. We did Airbnb the first time. And I think when we closed the house, we had like $2,500 left in our bank account. So that's what we used to furnish the place. And I was like, I got a paycheck coming in 2 weeks. As long as, we got something to eat by 2 weeks from now, we'll be fine. Cause we'll get it up and running and cash flowing, or at least making money. And I just knew it wasn't going to rent and be able to cover the mortgage as the long-term rental. But we had stayed in like places like that. My wife and I, we had stayed in little places like that when she would come to visit me in college or when we would travel, because we were like the budget conscious travelers, being college kids. So I know it could do decently, and I just didn't know how good it would do, and became a good strategy for us.
Yeah, I love that.
That's awesome.
And thank you for your service, by the way.
Yeah.
And continued service.
I appreciate
And
it.
I'm glad you brought that up because,
so weird.
oh my God. What's Phil's last name?
Capron.
Phil Capron. He wrote that book for Bigger Pockets, right? On, was it for Bigger Pockets, or did he just write one about basically his journey using the VA loan and eventually scaling it into syndications and everything else? So, I mean, if you're in the service, man, like, first off, thank you, but like seriously look at this to take advantage of this. Like you said, like you're able to get in, they finance 100% of it, which is amazing. No, make sure that it will still cash flow, but Jesus, like get into a small multi like that and let it snowball. That's phenomenal, man.
Yeah. I always tell people, like, if you're in the service or I have served, like the VA loan is almost like a cheat code, because you can go get multiple units for $0 down. If you have a disability, you can have like no VA funding fee. Plus you can negotiate in closing costs. So you could literally buy a house for next to nothing, if not nothing. It's just crazy. Like we've used ours twice, so you can use it more than one time. We bought 4 units total with $0 down. It's just that are all short-term rentals and cash flowing. So, I mean, it's a great strategy to jump off.
Yeah. So walk us through how you went from that with the ADU. So that makes sense, right? And then it's 66 unit syndication in North Carolina. Cause that's a big jump, in terms of like, mostly like, just tell us about the story. Like, how did that happen?
Yeah. So that the time frame from buying that first one to syndicating was about 1.5 years. And over that 1.5 years, I was renovating hurricane damaged homes. Like I was a contracting officer in the Air Force. So I dealt with contractors all day, scopes of work, negotiating the contracts and managing them. So that easily rolled over into what I was doing in the real estate space. So like doing $100,000 hurricane damage renovation didn't like scare me so much when I was dealing with $2 million Air Force contract. You know, kind of like gave me a little bit of false confidence, and learned along the way, just jumping in and doing it. And with that first house that had the guest unit, I got to thinking, I was like, man, if we didn't live here, like we'd have a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house on top of that. That would just be pure cash flow. So like, why don't we go look for another house like this? Because we bought it for essentially the price of one home. So you can find other houses in the area that have ADUs or, mother-in-law suites, above garage apartments, like whatever that extra unit is, and rent out both places. And then, we know that this size apartment in this area will at least cover the mortgage and like the fixed expenses. And then by renting out the main house, it's all cash flow after that. And then it was like, $2,000, $2,500 a month in cash flow. And we did that on 4 or 5 houses in Florida over that first year, and had surpassed with like my cash flow, like the net, what I was making in the Air Force in that first year. And I was like, man, what an opportunity cost now. I was like, my goals are too small. That was like, when I started that was my 5-year goal to get to that point. And I did it in that first year. I was like, all right, now I got to go bigger, and set some higher expectations for myself. So that's what led down the route of going into commercial real estate, learning, how it's valued, how to operate it, how to raise money and structure the deal, like all the things that go into buying a 66-unit apartment complex is pretty involved. And that's how it got there.
I love how simple you make it sound, because it is simple, right? In a sense, like that's what I always tell people about. Like they're like, how do you do it? I'm like, dude, if you hang out with me long enough, you'll know that I'm not a rocket scientist, right? Like it's just not who I am as a person, right? And that's why I love real estate. To me, real estate just makes sense. But and maybe this is just your Air Force training, so maybe that's just how it is, right? But it's just like, again, like headspace wise, mindset wise, a year and a half, it's not a lot of time. And so what was that mindset switch? You're like, you know what? Instead of starting with a 20-unit syndication, I'm going to go into the 66 unit right away. Like what, if somebody's listening, right, and is a similar situation to you, how did you wrap your head around going from like a single with an ADU to
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot that happened in between with all the renovations, raising money, private money, and all that kind of stuff. And I think those things are what laid the foundation to do essentially the same thing, but just at a bigger scale. So it was like, my first deal, it was another house with the ADU. I raised $30,000. And then it seemed like the biggest thing ever, like, holy cow, somebody just gave me $30,000 to go do this real estate project. Now I, have to refinance it and get their money back. And we did that one within a month because the bank didn't require seasoning. It was like cosmetic rehab, and got them their money back, and they were happy. I was like, oh, shoot, it's not that scary. And it's really not that hard. You just, do the things. And I think I've always been inclined to taking the action and figured out along the way. I think you need to put as much effort and diligence up front into minimizing the risk of the mistakes that you can make. But there's got to be a threshold of like, I got to go take action now. Like I know what the potential downside is. Like those are the things to swerve, but just pursue what you're actually trying to get towards. And then once I had, through that year and a half, like I had the experience of managing big renovations, multiple projects going on at the same time, raising money for multiple different private parties, multiple units up and running in operation. Then it just became like, okay, like I know these are the foundational pieces. And I know that, like there's a gap between where I am now and where I want to go. And then like how I've always done it with like building out, like my current business and past business is just like looking at that point in the future that you want to get to and just reverse engineering. It's like, all right, I got to learn a little bit about asset management. I got to, get better at connecting with investors and, presenting the opportunity rather than asking for money. So that way I can build the capital stack to be able to close the deal, then learn the property management and, landlord laws in the state that we're buying in, all that kind of stuff, the market analysis. So it was just like piece by piece. And it took like 9 or 10 months from the point that I pivoted to say, all right, I'm all in on commercial multifamily to close that apartment complex. But it was just, steady, just action in the meantime of like being in the trenches and learning the things I needed to, and finally finding the deal, going through due diligence, going through the first capital raise of like a big capital raise, which is kind of scary. And then, through all of that, I think was also lucky to find like the right partners along the way. Like it wasn't just me on that apartment complex. And it wasn't just me doing the houses and stuff either. Like I had, raised money from the right people and just like surrounding myself with the right people to put all those pieces together.
Love that. And so then that happened, right partners are there, which all makes sense to me. And I appreciate you just kind of sharing, because to me, again, it shows people the way once you get out of the way and you're just like, I'm going to plan the work and work the plan, plan the work, right? And you're just like, okay, perfect. Head down. This is what I need. Get it. Look up, right? So 66 units is closed, North Carolina. And then we're starting to look up and you're like, okay, now I want to do boutique hotels. So what was that first deal like? Was it in North Carolina? Was it back in Florida?
Yeah, so
you
back in
too, right? In your intro?
Yeah, it was back in Florida as an 8-unit was the first boutique hotel. And it really came from, being a commercial multifamily, analyzing a ton of deals, screening a ton of deals, putting out offers, and just, finally getting one. And like I saw it like continuing to get harder, like the deal, the margin getting smaller, the cap rates compressing. Like this was at the beginning of 2021. There's all the stimulus money, like institutions were going towards, commercial real estate even harder. And into real estate space to hold on to physical assets to hedge inflation after, all the stimulus and the quantitative easing over that COVID time. So it strained the returns I wanted to get in the deal. Like if I'm raising money, I don't want to raise money for a deal that I don't really like, right? Just to get the deal done. So it's like, where can I now pivot to find, a better spread, a better return? Like now I know commercial real estate. Now I know short-term rentals I've been doing for the last couple of years. And that evolved into like, would it be crazy to looking at hotels? Like it's the same, kind of diligence and closing process, raising capital, structuring the deal and all of that with like, operations on steroids a little bit, but I know the foundational pieces. Then again, it's just like, all right, let's work backwards to figure out how to actually run it. And then found a little 8-unit that made sense because I had 8 short-term rental units at the time. And I was like, instead of all over Panama City, all over the area, I had 8 units in one location with one linen room, one laundry at the facility and everything there. I was like, it's got to be easier. So then bought that one, and it kind of snowballed into then, at my meetup that I hosted, telling people what I was looking for, like found a really good deal, got 8 units for $357,000. It was going to be worth like what I projected, like 1.2, and it was appraised for 1.6 after the renovation. But the numbers looked great. The pro forma looked awesome. Like I knew the plan to execute because I, renovated 8 units already. Started telling people, and then it just started, more deals start coming. I think it's kind of curious sometimes when you tell the universe what you're looking for, you end up finding it.
You can't be quiet, right? One of the biggest things I learned from Grant Cardone a long time ago was like, if people don't know you, they can't flow you, right? That was one of his like sayings, and it might sound cheesy, but it's totally true. Like if people don't know what you're up to,
your aha moment, like you had like sparkle in your eyes. I remember him showing the chart of people talking about him and the amount of money he was making, and I turned around to look at Mike. This was like the very first Grant Cardone in Miami. And I turn around and look at Mike, and Mike has just this gigantic eyes. And he's like, yeah, and he's like, dude, that makes so much sense. I'm like, I know. And he's like, no, dude, that makes so much sense. And like ever since, it's been just because it's true. Like people just need to people want to support people if they know what the fuck they're doing. But people sometimes like nobody supports me. It's like, do they know what you do? It's like, no.
Yeah. I think if you're a person, like if you approach it as a good person, like with humility and add value and just tell people what you're doing and help them along the way, like stuff just flows back to you. And that's kind of what happened with these deals. Of course, we started looking at deals, finding them online, talking to brokers and all that, the other stuff. But 2 of them just like came to the inbox. They're like, hey, I heard you saying this at the meetup or, on social media or whatever. Here's a deal. Here's a lead. Is it something that would work for you? I was like, immediately when I saw them, I was like, yeah, I think those will work, but let me take a look.
Love it. So I want to shift gears a little bit now and just talk more from an operation standpoint. So you've done both, right? Like you've done the single families, now you've done, the small and now larger boutique hotels. Let's kind of compare and contrast operations and maybe where a lot of your guests come from and we can just kind of go round robin, because I think that there's a lot of misconceptions, especially on the show, because it's so focused on short-term rentals, that a lot of people just assume like, all right, I'll get this boutique hotel and I'll just put it on Airbnb just like I did for my short-term rentals, and it's all going to be fine. So I'd be curious, like what your experience has been and what your operations look like now.
Yeah, and when we had got into it and made the first one live, like we wanted, and this is how I always did. When I launched a new Airbnb listing, I would keep them just on Airbnb for the first 6, 8 weeks, whatever that, to get bookings, and I would limit my length of stay so that I'd get shorter reservations and a lot of them quick to get reviews. So we started out with that at the first hotel that launched in December, I think, of 21. And then because we were doing, like, I was literally in project phase on 5 hotels at one time in 3 different markets, we got really overwhelmed with just the pace of, building up the business, hiring the teams, putting in the systems, managing contractors, all that kind of stuff. So we stayed on just Airbnb for a long time, 6, 7, 8 months, maybe. And then I was like, all right, I'm tired of this. I know we're leaving money on the table. We're keeping our occupancy rate too low. And they were still performing fine. They're cash flowing well. But I was like, to optimize this, we need to spread out and disseminate our listings across the multiple channels. We went live on booking.com. We did our direct booking website first, then booking.com, then Expedia, and just went wider and wider with it. And then every month, like the pace of our revenue and our occupancy was going up. We're getting less reliant on Airbnb. We're building our direct bookings. We're having more control over the guest experience. And it just, elevated what we were able to do and took it from a pace of, like, I think we're on pace to do like 2.6 or 2.7 million in revenue. And then throughout that got up to 3 million. So yeah, definitely a huge thing. Like, you can't just put them on Airbnb, because occupancy, like with multiple units on site, occupancy becomes the real limiting factor for you. Like, you can get really good rates, but if you have bad occupancy, your RevPAR is going to be lower and you're not going to be grossing the amount of money that you expect it to. So yeah, getting on other listings or on the other listing sites is huge. And I know, like, Mike, I think you're talking about the conference. You're like 55, like you're more than.
We're like 60 to 70% direct. And then we actually just got on Expedia in December. So about 6 months ago, and we've done very well with Expedia. But if I was looking at the reservation mix for this year, and again, it's depending on the property, it's between 60 and 70% direct. And then it's like 10, 10, 10 between Airbnb, Expedia, and booking.com. It's almost an even split between those. One's like 9%, one's 11%. You know what I mean? Like right in that range.
Yeah. And then how are you driving traffic for the direct bookings and the signage, email marketing, social media, all the different
I
things?
do zero email marketing. And it's funny because we were just talking to Bill, and like, I agree, like it's super important, and I know we can do even better, but I started playing the Google game. So we've just been pushing guests, like, leave us a review on Google, leave us a 5-star review on Google. And now we have hundreds upon hundreds of 5-star reviews on Google. So when people are looking to book a hotel, the first place they usually go is to Google, and they go search hotels in Enter City, right? Yeah. And then our Google My Business page comes up with the other hotels, and they see that we have 400 reviews at like a 4.8. You know, that didn't happen overnight, but that was part of the plan. We worked with an SEO company for a while too. I think we still are for one of the properties, getting us to do some optimization, a little bit of SEO, some Google ads, just to get us some placement. And then just a lot of just getting involved in the community, right? And like, we're involved with the chamber, we're involved in the Innkeepers Association, we know all the local business owners, and it's just this little micro economy where people want to.
Sounds like such a northeastern Massachusetts thing.
It is. It really is. And I was
probably like a 300-year-old organization too.
They all wear uniforms still. They all show up with their uniform, the little pipes, and they're like, "Hi guys," you know? Yeah.
I love
it's
that.
funny.
Yeah. When we did, but I was going to say, when we did the same thing, we had a big spike. And for a long time, like when we were just on Airbnb, we had StayFi set up, and we were collecting all these emails, and we had an email list of like 3,000 or 4,000 before we actually started email marketing. And in that first quarter, we got like a 10% bump. And then we built out a new, it was like a $14,000 website with ICD, and like worth the cost, because we probably made that back in direct bookings over the next quarter too, with, the SEO, the Google profiles, and directing people there when they search in that area. And I think, we had a 15 to 20% bump over those 2 quarters. And that's what we're doing now is exactly what you just said is the Google My Business profile, and then taking like those OTA reservations, directing them to leave a review on Google through like the message thread. Cause it typically, not that I've seen, I don't know exactly how you do it, but it doesn't flag like the Google links like it would if you put in your own direct booking website in there, so that they can go to Google without it being flagged by Airbnb and like getting your account shut down or, listing streams or whatever. And then they leave their review there. So we're doing the same thing now.
Yeah. And what I think it's funny is that this show comes after the show that we did with Bill. And one of the things that Bill says, which is the other thing that's coming out of this show, is that there's so many ways that work and you don't have to do all of them at the same time, right? Because like, again, like the Google review thing is something that works great. And once you have a certain number, you start seeing results. Email marketing works great too. Once you have a certain number, you start seeing results. Word of mouth is how we grew a lot of our business. And on word of mouth, I don't need to have email marketing or Google reviews because people are like, just call this guy. He will take care of you. He has always done it for all of our clients. And that's how we grew our business, right? Like, I remember when Mike got into this, it's just like, do you have your stuff on Airbnb? And at the time we had like 2 listings and I had 1 listing on Vrbo, which I got kicked out of because I was advertising all of my properties under a single listing. But that was the Wild West. But like at the same time, like I have 76% of all of our booking come from our site, right? So I'm like, I don't care. So if you're listening to this, you're like, I don't have 3,000 emails. Okay, like start putting the systems in place to gather email and work on other things. The local people, especially in like smaller towns, it makes a difference because like people love and trust you and they refer you, and people don't need to see anything else.
Yeah. Like our hotel in Panama City Beach, we had a ton of like the local businesses and the neighbors around our hotels. They would direct their family when they came in town to go stay at our place. So like just by simply like introducing yourself with there's like houses and different businesses around your hotel. Like that's like the easiest way to make those relationships count. I think what you said is really good too. Like what works for Bill might not work for like us with the hotels, right? Because if we just did, like one marketing source and we only had one house or a few houses that house can only book, if it has like a 4 or 5 average night stay, whatever, that's very few people coming through. But in a hotel, 20 units on site, we might have 100 different people there throughout the week. So like capturing those email addresses and then, either uploading those into like your custom audience on Facebook ads or doing email marketing, doing direct campaigns, like it depends on like the kind of property you have, but yeah, just pick one thing to start rolling with. And actually from the conference, one thing I did from Bill's pushing was to start doing the Facebook ads. So now we're getting like thousands of views a week. And just doing like a $5 a day limit just to push traffic, increase the click-through rate and the views on the listing and getting up in the search rank.
Love it. Love it. We could talk a lot about the marketing end of it, but I want to switch gears here for a second and talk more about the operational setup now. So how does that look for the different properties? Do you have staff? Are you running them remotely? Is it a mix? Just kind of walk us through what that looks like now and anything crazy come up that you weren't expecting.
Yeah. So the back end of the tech stack and like the back end operations is all the same and linked through, like we use the same TMS, the same, all the different systems for the hotels. And then what I think was a really important step in our kind of evolution and growing the company was at first we just had one hotel in each market. And then we had the 3rd hotel, which was the second in one of those markets that was under contract. And we could sense like we had a manager, a property manager, a part-time assistant property manager than our cleaning staff. Because, me being full-time in the Air Force, like even though I was in the market, like I had the full-time job taking me away. My partner was, full-time in the Air Force on the other side of the country. So we couldn't be the ones to do the things at the property. So we had to think with scale in mind to build that from the start, right? So that we could have efficiency in our operation. So we had to run a little bit heavier with our labor costs in the beginning. And then we got that second hotel, and then we could spread those costs across the staffs that we had. We made that assistant manager full-time, and then we hired full-time maintenance. And then I was like, all right, now all of our contractor drama is gone. We're saving on, maintenance costs, even though we got somebody on salary and, we have payroll taxes and all that kind of stuff. We're actually net positive on that. And just the admin on the work for me, managing like getting different bids and stuff was a lot easier. And that pushed us to get a second hotel in our Tahoe market to build out that same operational efficiency there. So in each market, it was like 33 and 34 units. But I think like a more important factor there is like the revenue that we were able to generate. So it really wasn't the unit count that got us there. It was the gross revenue that then we could hire the staff that we needed, spread out the labor costs to run efficiently, have the people in place, the systems in place, the back end e-concierge messaging all the guests, so that we didn't have to do all the things. So like our scale kind of helped us get there. And that's how the on-site operations were set up and evolved over time.
I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of people initially want to talk about the unit count. And I tell them the exact same thing. I actually talked about it at our Miami retreat last year. Was like, I have this 13 unit that does just under $1 million a year. That like, it's the revenue's more important, because that is what gives you the ability to build that team. I don't care if you've got a 30 unit building. If it's only doing 400 grand a year, it's going to be very challenging for you to build a team.
That's going to be you managing all 30
Yeah,
units.
you're going to be an innkeeper. Like that's what it's going to come down to, which I have no desire to do. You don't have a desire to do. None of us do, right? So it's like you said, it's not always the unit count. It's just what can this thing produce that can support a team, so that even if you wanted to run it yourself, you're not handcuffed to it for the life of the deal.
I also love what you said about running a little bit heavy at the beginning in terms of payroll. Because I think that's another thing that people, especially the people that have 9-to-5s, that have to like kind of realize is like there is an element of like starting to hire people when you can't necessarily afford to hire them. But if they help you create the long-term system and you're still supplementing your income through your 9-to-5 income, to me, it makes more sense than for you to try to replace your income sooner. Because then what happens if you don't have the system, you replace your income, but then you got yourself another job.
Yeah.
The way you guys kind of did it.
What you're trying to do is build a business, not replace your job with another
So now
job.
you guys thinking longer, you actually managed to, at the same time, actually build the business. So then when you choose to get out of the Air Force 100%, you're not falling back into a job. You have a system that's been sustained by your salary, in a sense, when you needed it. And now you have a full business. And when you step out, you're actually out of 9-to-5 operations altogether. And again, it's super difficult to understand. And again, every family has a different story and you have different needs. But it's something that I don't think we talk enough about, because it's something, especially if you have a high W-2 income, that to me is what makes the most sense. Like just hold on for an extra 12, 18, 24 months and put extra money into your business that you create your infrastructure, and the bottom of your business, it's super strong, even when maybe it's too soon. But then when you come out, you're out and you're landing on top of this pyramid that you already built. And then it's all from there, right?
Yeah.
So having said that, when we just came on the call, you were talking about something else that you've been working on that sounds incredible. So now you have these 5 hotels under construction at the same time. I don't understand why you were overwhelmed at all, because that sounds completely doable across 3 different markets. I mean, that's
you know what? I actually said the same thing. This one will probably be easy. I'm stressing. It's more
you're stressing. Now you're like have one project in one market. You're stressing out. Before it was like 5 across 3. I'm like, that sounds like cake. But kind of walk us through 1, where you found it, 2, the kind of big picture image, and where you guys going from there.
Yeah. Put me on the spot. I got to knock on wood, because I don't want anything to go awry with this before the final paperwork signed by the seller. But verbally agreed, and we're working. I actually just missed a call from my attorney, but I'll call him after this to make sure it's all locked up now. Hopefully that was a good news call. But this deal is 130 unit in Tennessee by the Smoky Mountain National Park, like a couple minutes away from the gate, and a really good, they call it the peaceful side of the Smokies, really good submarket that sees a couple million visitors a year. The visitors to Eastern Tennessee is growing. The visitors to the national park is growing. They've got events there and stuff, and it's just really strong. And the purchase price per door makes me just want to smile and giggle like a little girl. So I like the deal. And yeah, I think the one thing about it is it's bigger. So I think there's going to be some varying operational complexities because we run all of our hotels without front desk staff, without, like not like a typical hotel. It's more of like that hybrid kind of Airbnbs and hotel, like, the modern boutique hotel where you book, you find it, and then you get your code and you check in and enjoy the amenities, and everything's taken care of for you without the staff on the property. So this one's got some different amenities with a wedding and event sitter that I think is going to add pretty healthily to the top line revenue, maybe like 500 up to 800,000 a year in revenue with not a whole lot of extra expenses other than the labor, because they usually pay the deposit, like the wedding and event people, that then covers the stuff you need to buy. So then it's pretty high profit there. But yeah, it came through. We talked about earlier about like when you put yourself out there and kind of let people know what you do and just do it with, with some humility and like add value through the content you put out and stuff. Like one of the masterminds I'm in got tagged in a Facebook post like, hey, there's this hotel. I have no way to take it down. I'm just happy to pass along the lead and kind of learn from somebody as they take it down. I was like, let me take a look at this deal. Underwrote it, and I was like, holy cow, I think we got something here.
Yeah, and that's mostly what I wanted you to share is the fact of like, again, without doing anything but sharing with people, this is what I'm working on. This is my dream. This is what our team is about. And you're not doing anything else. And then like looking at stuff, giving feedback to people, it's incredible how quickly something can happen when you just one, let it happen, and two, speak it. Like, right, like the more you speak it into existence, the more shit happens. And you can think it's magic, you can think it's the force, you can call it whatever you want. You can think it's God, even you, the force, right? I like it too, but I'm kind of a nerd like that. But yeah, I love it, man. And I'm excited. I'm excited to see kind of like what that grows into. I think that the F&B side of it, it's very interesting to me. And I don't know if it's the Italian in me, but like I love the idea of like hosting parties and restaurants and everything else. And the emotional component of the way people spend money on weddings, it makes my business mind kind of tingle a little bit because I'm like, holy shit. Like I know how much we spent on our wedding. Weddings are just getting more expensive. If you offer the right kind of experience, especially with a property like that, book out the whole property and everything else.
Yeah. I think it's pretty unique in that, like, especially for the wedding side, it like a lot of properties in that area are unique. Like they got mountain views, might have really good design and stuff, and they check a lot of the boxes. But this one literally checks like all of the boxes. Like you can host the whole, the whole venue at the hotel and give them a room, the whole bridal party, all that. It's got indoor and outdoor pools. It's on 10 acres. Got great photo opportunities. Got a huge venue. They can do the wedding upstairs and reception downstairs. We're building in a bar as well. We're gonna have catering. So like it kind of hits everything you need and is out of like the hecticness of like, being in downtown Gatlinburg and stuff like that, where all your family can't get there. It'd be traffic. So I'm pretty excited for it. And it's gonna present some unique challenges. But ready for it. I think it's got enough margin that I could probably trip and fall and still, do okay on it.
Yeah. On that note, I'd love to hear from you. Were there any things that came up operationally or whatever that you weren't expecting when you went from the single families to the hotels?
Yeah, I think at the very beginning, like we had written in when we had originally underwrote them, like management for the hotels, like it'll be like, kind of like a multifamily pass where you put the third party management in place. And as we had more discussions about it, like people didn't know how to handle it. And we kind of realized, and I think we had built it before we realized we needed to build it, but we built our own like property management company. So we have like the PropCo that own the real estate and the OpCo that manages the real estate, the operating company. So that PropCo OpCo structure was something that we stumbled into and just like figured out along the way and didn't really understand. And then I think based on the kind of hotel, and I mean like size, quality, amenities, age, the asset classes, like I guess in multifamily you call it like ABC class, but in like hotels it's like mid-scale, upscale, luxury, or like economy scale. So like those are going to vary your guest type, and then each different property kind of had a little bit different avatar, a little bit different price elasticity of how we can manage our revenue and our rates based on the guest and the demographic that was booking there. So really nerded out on the revenue management side, and also found a lot of efficiencies there too, because you have multiple similar units that you can split test and do stuff like that on. I always thought like revenue management, or before, like, you know, your big houses are going to have your longer booking lead time, and just incrementally you decrease prices as unbooked days get there. But there's a lot more to it on the hotel side, a lot more data to scrub through. And then as you build a team, like, right, as you build that opco to manage the hotels, we had 30 employees before I sold the last company. And there's a lot to that. And that's when, like, you're kind of talking about the vision and how it kind of attracts people. Like, that is so prevalent within your company, and how you need to like align your people's goals and their aspirations to the goals and aspirations of the company. So that when, like, as a business owner, you provide them those opportunities, they're hitting their goals and you're hitting your goals, and everybody is, you know, happy, like creating a good atmosphere where you're willing, or where one of them are willing to go to the property at 1 a.m. to take care of a guest that, you know, doesn't know how to turn on a shower and thinks the shower's broken. But
you're just gonna pull it towards you, bro. Just pull it towards you. It's like, it doesn't work, I'm gonna break it. I'm like, motherfucker, like, pull it towards you. It's not rocket science. And like,
yeah,
to
when
me,
I see
like,
messages, or like when the team tells me, like, I automatically know that person paid less than like $300. So like, if
yeah,
somebody
you're
pays
like, I'm like,
figure it out. And
I don't understand. I'm like, how do you shower at home? Like, I'm like, I don't get it. Like, it's just
the hell's
beyond
that
me,
point?
you
I
know?
don't know.
Yeah, no, but honestly, dude, it's so, like, I had this moment this weekend because we had something happen to a guest, and it was right in between the shift of like the daytime and the nighttime shift. And so I had to actually text my like on-site 11:30 at night. I'm like, thank you so much for answering. He's like, boss, anytime. Wait, this is what we're here for. And like, an understanding that like, they are you, right? And this is what we're telling on the boardroom call as well. Like, when you go into creating a boutique hotel, you create the direct booking website, you create everything, but a hotel also gets phone calls. And in
Mhm.
terms of like, you need to think about how people are answering the phone call, because your vision and your brand image needs to be absolutely congruent through and through. Because you can't tell me like, oh, it's a Florida luxury boutique hotel, and then people call and the person answers the phone is like, why y'all looking for? It is just like,
Hello?
is this
Like, is
is
this
this the boutique, is this
hotel?
the boutique hotel that I called, that luxury boutique hotel? It's like, yeah, that's us. What y'all want? And I'm like, you need to think about all these things. And there's things that you don't think about when you have 1 or 2 SDRs. It's not one thing that you think about when you're only dealing with guests on OTAs, because you go all your messages through there. But as you're growing and people are starting to answer their phone, like, what is the script? Like, what does that look like? Like, who's answering the phone? How are they doing it? What are they saying? Like,
Yeah.
all of this stuff goes into it. Dude, I'm
Yeah, I
super
think-
excited for you, man. I think I don't see you having any issues whatsoever. Like, it's just who you are as a person. You know what I mean? Like, the way that you look at life, to me, is more of an indicator of whatever your success is going to be. Because if you start stressing about things on the little stuff, then I definitely know this business is not for you. But when you're this excited
I
about,
appreciate it, man. Yeah.
it's
I
important.
think it's
You know? Yeah. Fun.
Well, I know we're coming up on our time. So before we get into the last question, first, Blake, I want to thank you for coming on here, sharing all your knowledge and wisdom with everybody, and congrats, man, on all the success. It's friggin' amazing, and you guys are on one hell of an upride trajectory right now, and I'm excited to see what you guys are doing going forward. So
It's funny how you like you're on that ride, and you always feel like it's hectic, and you don't really realize the progress that's made until you like take a pause and look back. Like, holy cow, just built a multiple $1 million business and sold it. Now I'm about to buy another multi-million-dollar business in one swing. It's kind of wild, but I appreciate you guys coming on, letting me come on and talk about this and share some hotel tips. It's been fun.
yeah, man, absolutely. So where can folks learn more about you? Follow your IG content, all the good stuff that you're putting out there.
Yeah, Instagram will probably be the best place. It's at Blake J Daily, and Daily has an E before the Y. And then YouTube, put content out there as well about short-term rentals, boutique hotels, just helping people. I don't think I really even have an ask on there. I'm just putting it out, putting good vibes out to see what comes back, and hopefully it leads to good stuff in the future for you guys and everybody else.
Love it, man. Love it. So the last question we ask all of our guests is, what is your number one secret to success with short-term rentals and boutique hotels?
Ooh, number one secret to success, probably something that we touched on a little bit earlier. And it's just like taking the action and not getting too overwhelmed with the idea of like all the things that could go wrong. Like for me, I'm so much more scared of not succeeding than I'm scared of failing. So I'll fail. I have failed 100 different times, 200 different times, but I'm learning things through those failures and making, small adaptations. You just don't want to, fail too big and like lose all your money. So just like take small, respectable size risk as you go, but you're never going to get the life you want, the business you want, and reach your goals if you're not willing to take the action. You just got to go. Like I just, sold a business, have a smaller team now that's really efficient, but we're smaller, and now we're taking down, or knock on wood, taking down a 130 unit boutique hotel because I know the steps. I'm confident in being able to do it again. And yes, I'm going to make small mistakes, and yes, I'm going to learn new things, but it's going to make everything else better going forward. As long as you have the margin on your decisions to take that action and do it.
Love it. Love it. Well, Blake, thanks again for coming on, brother. For the listeners out there, hope you guys enjoyed this one. Have an amazing week. We will talk to you guys soon. Hey, STR Nation, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave us a review. And in the comments, let us know what topics you want us to cover on upcoming episodes, and we'll make sure to get that in the books for you. And if you really want to learn how to launch, automate, and scale your short-term rental business, if you want to go deeper, then check out our free masterclass at strsecrets.com.